Okay, this is now Astrology for Adults, number 5. And I've got a million things to say, but I've only got like 25 minutes. The other thing is, just so you know, I'm trying to figure out an overhead shot, but at this point I need to do this when I'm writing and do this to put it back so that it's in focus. Anyway, so I'm calling this one How to Learn Astrology, because I want to tell you partly what not to do, and that is, I listened recently to part of a podcast, an astrology podcast, that was about Capricorn. And so one of the people in the cast or on the podcast said about Capricorn, pursuing personal material comfort is irrelevant to Capricorn. And that struck me as odd because it was new to me. Yeah, it wasn't. But the reason I'm telling you this is, on the one hand, ask your Capricorn friends and people that you know whether material comfort is important to them or not. Because it may be that it actually is. And so the thing is, if you listen to long descriptions about the nature of the signs, a lot of it's going to be incorrect, or it can be misleading. And maybe some of it's right. So you wonder if it's right or not. So leave a comment about, if you don't mind, about Capricorns and what they're like, and do they want or appreciate material comfort? And we'll see if this is actually true. The other thing is, I mentioned last time about, sorry, I just need to move the monitor, the recording. So last time I talked about Pisces they're supposed to be compassionate and wonderful people, but all the ones I know are bitter and resentful. So how do you learn astrology? You ask yourself questions and you wonder if something is right or wrong, or what it actually means. And then you pay attention to the experiences that you have, the things you come across, the things you notice, what people tell you, and so on, and you put it together. And how this can work is, last week, this is after the video that I made, and my daughter asked me if I had a copy of the Alexandria Quartet by Lawrence Durrrell, and I did. So I told her I had it. And then that night, I said to my wife, open the book at random and read me the first sentence of the first paragraph that your finger lies on. That's actually quite useful as an oracle. I happen to have, hadn't expected to do this, but it's The Mystic Masters Speak by Vernon Howard. And it's a book of quotes, and there's 1,390 or something. And so what you do is you either just open it at random and point your finger, and that's something relevant for you at the moment. Or if you've got a question, what's the answer to the question? That's the answer to the question. You read it and apply it to yourself. That's one way. But so I had the Alexandria Quartet, so I got my wife to open it, and she read, and it's about Alexandria, North Africa, right? So I'll read you the line that she read to me. She said, it was as if the action which Nessim, one of the characters, had been contemplating grew with such infinite slowness, like a stalactite, that there was time for all this to fill the interval. The rockets ploughing their furrows of sparks across the velvet sky, because it's North Africa, the sky was velvet, and it was 1937 or something like that, piercing deeper and ever deeper into the night, where Justine and I lay locked in each other's arms and minds. So I then said to my wife, when was his birthday? So she looked it up on her phone, and it was February 1912. The following day, I went to astro.com, and I wanted to see what Lawrence Durrrell's horoscope was like. And I read the Wikipedia entry beside it or below it. And so it turns he was born in India, and the father wanted him to join the Indian civil service to have a job, a long-term prospect. But you couldn't get in unless you had a university degree. So when he was very young, the father sent him in England to be accepted for university. And he said, Durrell, the Wikipedia entry said, Durrell failed to pass entry exams. Later he wrote that, quote unquote, intellectually I was brilliant, but failed the exams because of subconscious resentment. And that's what I had mentioned. Pisceans are bitter and resentful. So what do you do? I wanted to know if that was true or in what way it was true. And my situation, my life led me naturally and automatically, I suppose, to reading about a Piscean who failed exams because of subconscious resentment. The word was there. Then it turns out from this Piscean person, it turns out he had a daughter who described his intense psychological tormenting of her and his wives in her journal, and she hanged herself in 1985. And so Lawrence Durrrell was a wife-beater who insisted on using women for the purpose of establishing his pretensions of superiority. His sexuality was voracious and cruel, and alcohol was a close companion. So that's one Piscean, and there's no correct or accurate time of birth, so we can't do much with the moon. Well, we can do the moon, but we can't do the other houses and cusps. So what do you do with a statement that's apparently true? And not all Pisceans are like that, but what do you do with the information? With anything, you write it down, and one day something will click. You ask yourself a question, or you ask the cosmos a question, and when you're ready to hear the answer, it'll appear, and that's how you learn astrology. A bit, one step at a time. There's a million steps, and you take them one at a time, and you pay attention to what you think and what you come across and what you hear about other people. So somebody tells you about something that their friend did and it was interesting or unusual. You get the friend's birth date, and now you've got a birth date with planets and signs, and you've got a certain behavior that person manifested. And that's how you learn. So I asked you about what Capricorn, are they or are they not pursuing personal material comfort? And if they are, you write that down, and you've got one person who does. But if you find that they do pursue material comfort, you make a note of that as well. But you also wonder, if they do, why do they do it? And if they don't, why don't they? And it might be the decanate, because the beginning of Capricorn is a Capricorn decanate ruled by Saturn, just Saturn. From 10 to 20, Capricorn is the Taurus decanate ruled by Saturn and Venus. And they'll be in certain parts of the zodiac. And the third part, from 20 to 30, is Capricorn with Virgo. So you're dealing with Saturn and Mercury. They may be in aspect, they may be poorly placed, they may whatever, but you're building up layer upon layer of information and understanding about the signs and the planets and the horoscope. But the main thing I want to do today is talk about the value sense. So that's a horoscope, and that is the first house there, and the ascendant is here, right? We know this. The second house is this one, and the second house describes money, how you make money, what you spend it on, but it also describes, more importantly, it describes the value sense. It describes what you care about. So you may be a Capricorn, but what do you care about? Maybe you care about comfort, or you care about philosophy, or you care about being at home and looking after people, or you care about analysis. All of that, all of those ideas, which are specific to the sign on the cusp of the second house, by the sign and the decanate, they're all specific to give you more understanding about the nature of the person. So when you've got an ascendant, you then look at the second house cusp and you put these two factors together. So I happen to have, let me just do this way. I've got Aries rising, 13 Aries rising, right? And my second house is 28 Taurus. So this is me. I'm a pioneer. I'm a child. I'm childish. I'm childlike. But at the same time, I've got the value sense of a farmer, because Taurus is a farmer. So that gives you more about me, about what I'm actually like, not what you think I'm like. Though what you think and what I'm like may be the same. But you take the idea of a child who cares about the kinds of things that farmers care about. So I may be childish and childlike, but I also appreciate the importance of planting seeds and waiting and letting them develop under the ground, and then they appear above the ground, and you wait until the autumn to harvest. So planting a seed and getting to the end point where it's harvestable or where it's usable can take a long time. But I appreciate that I can't, if it comes overnight, it's not realistic. It can't be realistic. Also, 28 Taurus happens to be Taurus, which, as you know, I imagine you know, is an earth sign. And earth is practicality, right? So I value practicality. So this is why I listen to podcasts about these harebrained ideas about astrology and about signs and decanates, and why I can't take it seriously, because it's not practical. So if I read this thing about pursuing personal material comfort is irrelevant for Capricorn, how can I take a statement like that and make use of it in reading a horoscope? It might be right, but I don't think it's that practical or that useful for being able to read a chart. And that's why I'm suggesting the Vivian Robson book with 2 or 3 words to describe the nature of the sign or to describe the nature of a planet in a sign. So Taurus, we know, is practical, right? So I value practicality. If you tell me something that's, even with poetry, I like it because it's got practical value. And it tells you something and gets you thinking and enables you to understand more. So, but also we know that Taurus is a fixed sign. So I value things that are stable, that are going to last for a long time. I like to buy things that are expensive so that, because I know I'm going to use it for 40 years. I don't like, I once went to Old Navy and I bought a pair of jeans, and they were cheap, like $19 or something. It was winter, and I actually tripped and landed on my knee on the concrete sidewalk. It tore the jeans. So it was $19 down the drain. I would rather buy something that's expensive that's going to last. So you think about you and your own self and your own value sense. The value sense is so important to get an understanding of what the person's actually like and what they care about. And you can do, even if you don't know much, you can do, it's Taurus and it's fixed. So my values sense is practical and it's fixed. So I began with the tarot in 1975, and I'm still doing it 50 years later. I started with astrology about 3 years later, and I'm still involved with it and doing it. My values are fixed. Once I decide something is useful and valuable, I stick with it. Whereas somebody with Aries here on the value sense, they appreciate things that are quick and exciting and interesting, but also that don't require that much serious study, maybe, although it depends where Mars is. So, one other, I'm just looking at notes over here. One other thing is, I need more paper. Okay, so the Ascendant and 7th house cusp. Is that running out? Okay. So the Ascendant is you because that's the self, right? And the sign here tells you about you, and over here is the 7th house cusp. The descendant, other people. But the thing is, you can get an idea of your path in life by understanding the nature of the sign. So I have Aries rising and Libra on the 7th house cusp. So my path is be myself. Aries is I am myself, and I want to find balance and harmony with other people. And that's my path. There's me and other people. And I need balance and harmony so that I can be a better version of myself. So that when I try to find balance and harmony with other people, I get a more sophisticated understanding of harmony and balance and the nature of the people that I'm dealing with. Whereas we're going to look eventually at Paul McCartney. Does he have Virgo rising, which Pisces in the 7th house cusp? So Virgo's I analyze. Does Paul analyze himself so that he can believe in other people? Because Pisces is I believe. So he analyzes himself so he can have a stronger belief in other people, so that he can have a better analysis of himself. Or is it the other way around, where he's got Pisces rising and Virgo in the 7th house cusp? He's learning to believe in himself so that he can analyze other people, and he analyzes other people so he can have a better understanding of, or a better belief in himself. Maybe a more confident belief in himself. So we've got Aries is I am, Libra I balance, Taurus I have, Scorpio I desire, Gemini I think, Sagittarius I understand, Capricorn I use, Cancer I feel, Aquarius I know, Leo I will, in the sense of my will be done. So if you get somebody with Leo in the 2nd house cusp, you know, they're fixed, yes, because Leo's a fixed sign, but they're also fire. Fire is inspiration, and that's something you can do. So Earth is practicality. Think about what practicality means. Fire is inspiration. Air is aspiration, hoping for. And Pisces is emotion, or water rather is emotion. So you can do something with the nature. I'm thinking about the ascendant, descendant for your path in life. But you put together the path in life with the 2nd house cusp, because you've got a certain path, and you've got the planets that rule, the signs and the decanates to give more detail about the nature of the path. And then we've got the 2nd house cusp for the value sense. So going back to me, I've got I've got Aries. No, the value sense we're talking about. 28 Taurus is Venus, and I've got Venus in the 5th. So what do I care about? Children. Romance. Somebody once told me I was a romance junkie because I just couldn't help but have romance with everybody. Anyway, and then it's the Capricorn decanate, which gets Saturn in Virgo. So what's my value sense? I want to create, because the 5th is that, and I want to look after children, but at the same time I want to be of service to other people. And so I make videos, educational videos, which is a combination of the Saturn and Virgo being of service, and Venus in the 5th, which is, among other things, entertainment. So and one other thing that I'll mention just for the moment that I will eventually come back to, each decanate of the zodiac has a particular keyword or a key idea that goes with it. And the 3rd decanate of Taurus, I'm going to mention a Scorpio fellow later, and in case I forget, the keyword for 1st decanate Scorpio is resourcefulness. So the fellow I'm going to talk about, is resourceful. So you've got a problem, any problem, he'll solve it. He'll fix it out. He'll figure out how to do it. I'll come back to that in a bit, because the decanate for 28 Taurus is mastership. I like quality and expertise. And I'll tell you one thing. I used to teach in a college, and people, you get these, you get a sheet of paper and you get a 3-ring binder and you punch holes here, here and here, and it fits into a binder. I used to get people to write reports, and then we would work on it. And some people would put the paper on a slant into the 3-ring binder, so the holes weren't here, here, and here, neatly the same distance from the edge. There'd be one up here, and one here, and one down here, and it wouldn't fit. It was so sloppy and casual and uncaring, and I got really offended by it. I didn't take it out on the student by giving them a bad mark, but I couldn't understand why people could hand in such sloppy work. Why? Because I've got 28 degrees of Taurus in the value sense. That's what I care about, that kind of thing. So the last thing to do, hope I've got time, is this fellow, whose name I can't remember, said, Sun-wise, I'm a criminal who's a criminal. I have Mars and Gemini. That's retrograde. So does that make me a conscious criminal who overthinks until he is too paralyzed to commit the crime? Maybe, but then it occurred to me, it depends what you want from the person. So if you want somebody to figure out what could go wrong or what's going on below the surface and express it or write a report about it, I would go to this fellow who left the comment, the Scorpio with the Scorpio decanate Sun and Mars and Gemini. Because it's not so much that Scorpio is a criminal. It's more that if I have to go to court and I need a lawyer, I would pick a good criminal lawyer because they know what to ask or how to manipulate the situation to my advantage. They're not going to be naive and innocent and not do a good job for me. So it's not so much that Scorpio is a criminal. Scorpio understands how certain types of people go about doing certain things that may not be totally honest. And if it's a bit like if you're going to a knife fight, you don't take a piece of wood with you. You take a knife. So you deal with the situation with what's appropriate. And the natal chart shows you how you naturally function. And so you've got a perfect place to function. That was it. I'm rushing off here. So have a nice day. Okay. Bye-bye.